question for each of you. I guess I'll start with you, Kelly Conlon. If you didn't like Bloomberg, the person we're looking at right there, with term limits and maybe one or two other issues, wouldn't you be on the other side tonight screaming bloody murder if you didn't personally like Bloomberg?
Absolutely not. I mean, I think it's really important for a lot of New Yorkers. What really matters is a candidate's record and vision for any job. In my particular job, you know, we have to look carefully at those kinds of nuts and bolts things, because you know what? Politicians who say, oh, I agree with you, I'm with you, and then who bolt whenever a tough issue comes up are unfortunately all too plentiful around this country. And so you have to really look at what separates. You know, the Assemblyman brings up housing. Well, under Mayor Bloomberg, over 500,000 new housing units have been built. Now, certainly it's a cynical view to view that, well, he didn't see the financial collapse coming. Well, you know what? No one saw the financial collapse coming. No one saw Lehman Brothers collapsing, not the president, not the candidates for president. I mean, there's no crystal ball that anyone, including Bill Thompson, would have had to predict that. And yet, in response to that, Mayor Bloomberg has come up with some real plans. And so, you know, it's important to take into context what the real facts are and to look at the broad array of issues facing this city and what the candidates stand for. And I'm hoping during the debate, a lot of that will come up.
Well, my question for you, Assemblyman, Kelly Conlon pointed out a number of times that crime is down 30% since Bloomberg took office. Isn't that a major accomplishment?
Well, crime has actually been on the decrease since the last 2 years of the Dinkins administration, and then going through the 8 years of Giuliani
right,
and
but we know it could have easily reversed.
Well, I think that the Bloomberg administration has learned from some of the tactics, whether that's CompStat and or other policing techniques that have been employed to a great degree of success, not just in the city of New York, but all across the country.
So you're not willing to give them credit?
There'll be no difference in crime. Bill Thompson will make sure the city is just as safe, if not safer, than it is right now under Mayor Bloomberg. And by the way, I still represent communities in Bedford-Stuyvesant and Crown Heights where I have to go to wakes and funerals of young 16-year-old children who are gunned down, where I have to deal with the NYPD police department that kills an unarmed innocent man named Shem Walker on his mother's front porch. And so, yes, you can point to cold, hard statistics, and the Bloomberg administration does that well, but there's still a lot of pain and hurt in this city as a result of the crime and violence that's continuing to take place, particularly in the outer boroughs and in Upper Manhattan. And the NYPD still needs to improve the relationship that it has with the Black and Latino community. We have Diallo under Giuliani, we have Sean Bell and Omar Edwards under
compare
Bloomberg.
Mayor Bloomberg to Rudy Giuliani and the race tensions that existed then versus what he's been able to achieve in eliminating a lot of that. Now, it's obviously sad when things happen, and I'm certainly not diminishing the importance of individual families who have lost loved ones, but the reality is the reality that, you know, there are specific moments where these things happen, but under Mike Bloomberg, the tensions that defined this city for so many years have really diminished, and I think that's to his credit.
Well, I'm willing to concede that Bloomberg has been more benevolent in his dictatorial ways, but he's still a benevolent dictator. And the reality is that anyone who follows...
Dictator or something?
Absolutely.
Is that fair?
No, I think, Dominic, he said it would be disgraceful to legislatively repeal.
But he's still in his second, he's still in his term.
And then he went about and engaged in the most undemocratic, breathtaking power
it's
grab.
not my role to get involved with any of that. I'm the neutral, unbiased observer. But this is a man, you talked about his money, this is a man that gives a lot of money to programs that benefit kids that look like me and you. And you're referring to him as a dictator?
Well, listen, his philanthropy should be commended. I think it also has brought him a lot of friends across the city of New York that paid off with respect to term limits and some of his other public policy initiatives. But I don't want to take away from his charitable givings, and he has a lot of money to give. We all wish we had that much money to be charitable. But his public policy approach in his 8 years, particularly in the second term, has been increasingly dictatorial. Now, he does it with a smile. He may not do it in the same mean-spirited fashion that Rudy Giuliani did it, but he still has conducted himself in a forceful, aggressive, ham-handed
I
fashion.
got to wrap this up, but I'm just curious on this point. So when a dance school in Harlem is looking at closing by the end of the week, and Bloomberg, without press release, cuts a check to keep that school open so that kids of color can continue dancing on Saturdays, you're not willing to give him credit for that?
No, I've said that, of course, he should be commended for his charitable giving, but he's not running to be charitable mayor-in-chief. He's running to be the mayor of the city of New York. And it's fair to be critical of the manner in which working families and middle-class New Yorkers across the board, whether it's on homelessness, whether it's on the affordable housing crisis, whether it's on the increased poverty rate, the gap between the rich and the poor, the manner in which people are being pushed out of the city of New York and displaced by the luxury condominium explosion, which, by the way, captures most of the 500,000 units. Those are the problems with the Bloomberg administration.
I'm out of time, but let me do this. I'm curious as to, as you know, tomorrow night, the candidates will have the opportunity to ask each other a question. And so I'm curious, what would you ask of the other candidate here tonight? Quickly, I guess I'll start with you, Kelly Compton.
But I would ask Bill Thompson.
Yes.
Is he willing to be bold? You can call Mayor Bloomberg anything you want, but one thing he is not as a politician. He has stood up repeatedly to special interests who are very powerful. He's become the #1 enemy of the NRA. He's allowed himself to get in the middle of, the powerful tobacco lobby by thwarting them. He's gotten in the middle. The first week in office, he said the health and hospital corporations, hospitals would have abortion training in them. He's a bold guy. So I would say what in his record would lead voters to believe that he will follow Bloomberg's path of boldness.
Fair enough. Assemblyman Jeffries, your turn.
Well, one, the fact that he's willing to stand up against the $100 million Bloomberg money machine is a bold act on behalf of Mr. Thompson. But what I would ask, I think, or encourage the controller to ask, is the mayor willing to take responsibility and accountability for the failed economic situation on behalf of working families and middle-class New Yorkers as measured across any number of different statistics, whether that was the increased poverty, the homelessness, the affordable housing crisis, the fact that they're getting socked with property tax increases. If he's willing to say that he's the only person capable of steering this country, this city, through the economic crisis, when is he going to be willing to take some responsibility for the people who are suffering in the city of New York under his watch?
Okay, those are two very good questions. I'm taking notes. We thank the both of you for joining us tonight. Assemblyman Jeffries,
thank you, Dominic.
Kelly Conlon, we thank you very much. We'll see what happens tomorrow, but we will continue our discussion of the debate that's coming up. We'll ask our 4 spin doctors what's at stake in tomorrow night's debate. Our Monday Consultants Corner is up next.